computer. All right. Hello, my Crow Conjuring people. Thank you for listening to this podcast. And today we are talking with Shelly Ayers. She is our angelic medium, if that's how you describe yourself, Miss Shelly. Yes, angelic medium. We are featuring her this month for Higher Self that we are doing for the month of September. She did some amazing angelic messages for our clients this month. And for all of our podcast listeners, if you want to describe, what it is that you do and talk about your business a little bit and how people can get connected with you after they listen to this, they're like, I really want that. How do you find that?
Well, the first way you find it is Instagram is the easiest. It's Shelly Marie 888. And then I have shellymarie.net. So I'll be dropping the name Ayers on social media and legally eventually, but shellymarie.net and Shelly Marie 888 on Instagram. I call myself an angelic practitioner because my spiritual practice and spiritual business has developed over 20 years of combining motivation and spiritual techniques. So I love to be inspirational, but I also grew up loving and living in the spiritual world. There's not one thing that I do that is not spiritual. Like I'm always seeing the space in between, always, like just always. But in 1998, I saw Tony Robbins front row with a sales team. Now, I've got a background in sales, and in those days, I was number one in the nation. I loved what I did, but Tony Robbins, he changed my mindset. I had no idea that our brains could change our destiny. And remember, that wasn't even the year 2000. So there was all this talk about the year 2000 coming. Okay. So anyway, that is that. Now, at the same time, I had a calling for all the things. Oh, I grew up playing the Ouija board. Like the Ouija board was my best friend. Okay. And I'm still here, people. Like I'm still here. Nothing bad ever happened. Anyway, I grew up playing the Ouija board, and I grew up seeing like what was going around the adults in my life too. I was a little tiny counselor for many, many adults in my life. Naturally, I didn't know where the information came from. I was really #born that way, legit. But then in my 20s, I had a friend who I worked with, and she became my mentor. So she did everything tarot. So my spiritual business and practice as being an angelic practitioner came from studying with her tarot. We studied energy healing. We studied your thoughts manifesting your reality, and we would play with the energy. And a cute story about when we first started using tarot cards. What deck did she use? Gosh, which one was it? It's by okay, it's an interesting deck. I'll remember it, and we'll have to show it later. But anyway, we used to feel the energy so strong, and we would be in my front room laying down cards, and I would say to her, just tell me what you see. Just tell me what you see. And she would throw these cards down, and the imagery on them was it wasn't scary, but it was intense. But I had known energy from an intuition level, but practicing energy, there were times I would get up and I would run out of my front room. Like I would just be so blown away. I would go running out of the room going, I can't believe this. I mean, I was in my early 20s. Okay.
Yeah.
And then later on I discovered Hay House, and everything Hay House was so magical for me because being married and having children in my late 20s made me question whether or not what I was doing was okay as a mom. I started to question my authenticity. What do they need to have empowerment? What do they need to be? Do they need churches? So I started to kind of question and again, explore a little more. But that spirituality, when I found Hay House, I found the angelic realm. Mm-hmm. And that was a game changer. So I guess, am I still in the right path here? Is this where I'm supposed to be going?
Yeah, you can just
Okay.
keep on talking, because the next question I was going to ask you was, how did your spiritual journey get started? And you're kind of like going down that path already, so you're doing awesome.
Okay. So when I found the angels, studying the angelic realm, it really took this the feeling of heaviness and the reading the cards and knowing the intuition. The angels made it like kind of like sparkling glitter over your reading. It was kind of like lighter and airy. And what you get with an angelic reading is like, I call it like a magical Reiki healing. So not only do you get the really needed information, there's something, well, hashtag magical, about working with the angelic realm. Your angels love you. Your angels know your life path. The only thing you must do is invoke them and call on them for them to intervene. So, angels, help me now, is all you need to say. Angels, help me now. And then there's specific angels for a lot, but it changed my readings. And then I went on to study everything, a lot of things Hay House, but a lot of other concepts. And I continued working with my friend. So I did yoga teacher training, and I worked with all the gods and goddesses. Ganesha appeared to me and right in the middle of yoga teacher training. And I had wondered, this was now, we're all the way up to 2012 now, and I had wondered how the deities would feel or if I would have experiences. And when I studied the Yoga Sutras, and let me say read the Yoga Sutras, because to say that you've studied the Yoga Sutras is a really, really big deal. So I read them in yoga teacher training, and that was enough to invoke new portals opening up in my mind and connections with gods and goddesses that were completely unexpected. So then when Ganesha showed up to remove obstacles for me, that again took all the things I had been learning, right? And so if you're on a spiritual journey, it's okay to fully immerse in what you're called to in the moment, because it blends all together, you know, on your path, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of how, but the angels are the main thing that I use because of the healing, the magical, the high vibe, and then I have all these other tools that I mix with them. And of course, if you know me, I've got to have a candle and a crystal, and coffee. There's something magical about coffee, but if you don't drink coffee, I get it. But, maybe it's the coffee cup that makes me happy.
Yeah, I totally get it. I have a couple of candles burning right now, and I try and I pulled some cards for myself before I even dove into this reading. And fun fact is, I actually started off reading angel cards, and I had a specific angel deck, and my mom took me into a metaphysical shop, and this old woman grabbed me really hard, and she's because I wanted a tarot deck, I really wanted one. And she was like, no, you are supposed to work with the angels, you were an angel. And she essentially was reading me and telling me all this stuff about how I was an angel and I came down to earth and you're supposed to have this angel deck. And she shoved this angel deck at me. My mother ended up buying the angel deck, and I worked with it for a super long time. But this is where I figured out, unfortunately, that certain decks serve a purpose, and I would shuffle it and I would sit down for hours, and the angel of it was one of Doreen Virtue's decks, and the angel of death kept popping up, and it was I'm assisting you now in your time of grief. And I would sit down and shuffle every single reading for hours, and then about 3 months later my mom ended up passing away. And
Oh my goodness. Oh my
I
goodness.
knew
Okay.
it's a sad story. Unfortunately, a lot of my stories with this realm and activity aren't the happiest. I'm not gonna lie. But
Oh my goodness.
um certain decks and certain, I think, spiritualities and movements come into your life for a reason. And that was kind of I always say it's it was my early warning sign. It was my early warning. And then right as we were moving, I actually lost that deck. And every time I go to buy one, I went into Barnes and Noble because they used to sell them in Barnes and Noble too. And I went to go get one, and another person came up to me and she said, no. And then she just walked away. And I knew, like, after that, I was like, I guess maybe it's just not for me anymore. And I just stopped because I was like, maybe, I got my message that I wanted my message, and I got my message. And then I've just never picked up another angel deck again because I guess just like for me, like I got what I needed out of it. And it left for
That's amazing. Now, were you upset at the angelic realm? Did you feel that they delivered you such a negative message?
No, I don't think I was upset, but I just felt like, I got what I needed, and this was not, it wasn't for me anymore, I guess. I don't know. It's not that I can't, like, I've held seances, like seance readings for people, and I've seen people that have angels and guides around them, like whenever I open myself up to it. And I mean, I got another warning like the day before she passed away, or not the day, but the morning of, excuse me. I woke up and I had this like really intense dream that I'll never forget. Me and my mother were shopping, and this woman in this black suit, who I now know is like a reaper, because I've seen them before working in healthcare and in hospice. And she was looking at me, and me and my mother were standing in an elevator, and we were shopping. My mother was laughing, doing whatever. And she looked at me, and it's almost like I looked at her, and she was like, she sees me, and I was like, who are you? And I start questioning her in the dream. And the woman looks at me, and she looks at my mother, and she says, she's coming with me. And I remember feeling extremely frightened then. And I was like, no, she's not, go away. And I tried to send her away. And she kept getting more insistent. My mother totally doesn't know what's happening in the dream. She's like, whatever. And I start to yell at this figure in this black suit who was a woman. And I was like, get away from me, get away. And I just got really aggressive. And then the dream switched, and I saw my mother laying in bed, and this is the morning time. We were all actually asleep. And the woman in the suit was standing over her bed, and she looked at me, and she was very sincere. She was very peaceful, but she was also like, this is happening now. Like, get ready. And she looked at me and she said, I'm so sorry, but she's coming with me. And then about 2 hours later, she passed away. It was intense, but I always say that I was extremely lucky that I got so many messages along the way. Like, I don't look at it as a bad thing because so many other people don't get that. And I feel lucky that I got that.
Yes.
I know
Yes.
it's not a part of like me every day anymore. But I did used to sit in my room and I was like, hey, what's up? What's out there? Like, maybe I was a little too open. Like,
yes.
that's my personal experience, like working with angels and stuff. And I don't know, like, I can perceive them and everything, but I know I got what I needed most out of it. And
I love that. I love that. I love that because, I would think, oh my gosh, she'd be maybe afraid of them, or are there an evil angel, or was it an angel of light? Those are things I feel like that would run through someone's head, but you have the higher connection. So you knew this was specific guidance for you, and your angelic team is going to show you pictures and dreams that are going to resonate with how you understand. So someone could get the same kind of message, and then you could not same kind of message but delivered differently, but this was a way that you would listen.
Yeah. And I think one of my things is that maybe it's a good thing, maybe it's a bad thing, but I've always been a person that's like, unless I see it with my own two eyes, I almost don't believe it. Like, you got to get into my face so I can feel it and I can see it. And maybe that's why I get things like that, because I want to see it. Like, I want to see it.
And that's exactly what your team knows about you. And they're going to get through to you in that way. Now, I had an experience. I just got back from Soul Summit in Arizona
That was
with,
probably epic, right?
it was epic. It was great. I had 3 hours of sleep yesterday. I came home and I told my daughter that we were going to see the new movie. It's Hustlers with J-Lo and Cardi B. Because
Oh,
if
yeah.
you know me, I like rap music. I'm sorry, but it's just who I am. Always been. Music's always been a part of my life, and channeling and manifesting. So I said, when that comes out, we're going to go see it. So I said, hey, do you want to go see it? She said, yes. So coming off a high vibe weekend, I went into the kitchen and I heard very gently in my head, don't let Caitlin drive.
Mhm.
And I thought, well, that's silly. We just drove up a very tiny, windy road and we picked up my other daughter from yoga teacher training. It's literally a one-way road and she drove on it. And I'm like, oh, but that's really weird. And I've only had about 3 hours sleep. So why shouldn't she drive? Like I'm probably the more tired one. And
Yeah.
then I heard you need to be in your SUV. And okay. I'm like, okay, gosh, all right. Just coming off a Soul Summit. I'm like, all right, I'll go with it. So I looked at my daughter and I said, Caitlin, she's like, I'll drive. And I said, actually, I just really feel like I shouldn't let you drive. I have no idea why. She's like, okay. And I said, let's take the car, my SUV. So we drive. It's only like a mile up the road. We go to there and we drive uneventful and we're like singing and listening to music, right? And I'm extra alert because of that message. Nothing happened. So we come home, we get in the car, we're listening to Janet Jackson, and we're like just, kind of like singing a little, and we're talking. And there is like 4 deer that are in the bike lane. It's pitch black out, and their noses must have come within an eighth of an inch of my car. I hit the brakes really hard, and I will never forget their glass eyes and their little button noses. They were that close. And I hit the brakes and I swerved, and then I came back into the lane. And then if it had been her car, she's a very little tiny Volkswagen Jetta. And with that kind of reaction like that, because they had literally stepped out, it wasn't like you were going to see them. They had just come out. And so we were supposed to be in the SUV, and we swerved without losing control or anything. And we got home and we were just sitting there, like literally we were so scared. Everybody, or her and I, just went, and you get silent. And she says, Mom, I was so scared I didn't even hear the music anymore. And then we turned on our road and there were a few more deers like almost in the street. And, so I said, that's it. I said, geez, I'm just going to drive home at a dang idle. Where I was like, at that point, I'm like, gosh, with all these deer. So again, coming off a Soul Summit, I always follow those messages, you guys. Those are how spirit talks to the most of us. And if you have those impressions, it's really, don't ask why, just do it. And I did it with less thinking about it last night, and I very quickly knew why. But then I got home and I'm like, well, it was what? A deer in the headlights. It was a dark road. The only thing that lit them up were my headlights. They were that close. So I asked for an additional message. They were in the bike lane. Stay in your lane. Deer in the headlights, don't get spooked. But that was the spiritual message that I got after I got home and calmed down a little bit. So there are messages from, the angelic realm and from your guides all the time. But that just happened late last night.
Oh yeah, yeah, I definitely believe that. And I mean, I've always been somebody that's like tried to follow my gut instincts. Like if my gut tells me not to do it, like I try my very best to not push forth. I mean, I think there are times where I've definitely ignored it and I've gotten a spiritual spanking pretty hard where I get shut down. And that's just me being stubborn of course. And of course, after the story that I told you, like I definitely tried to think about, well, if I would have just changed things, if I would have reacted quicker, if I would have just made one more different choice. And it took me years to really come to terms with the fact that like it wasn't about me reacting, it was about me like coming to acceptance, because that was going to happen in my life no matter which way I would have reacted.
Absolutely, because it was your mother's journey. And you'll probably continue to receive gifts of warnings. Every one of us gets a gift that, that's a little stronger than others. But Azrael, for those people who may not know, that Azrael is the angel of death, and he helps souls cross over. And the thing with Azrael in regular life, I called him the divorce angel.
Mm-hmm.
Because he helps you safely, or anything, say you lose your job, he helps you safely deconstruct your life. So I also think of it a little bit as the Tower card in tarot. And I know the Tower card's like the big boom, but when Azrael comes, it working with that angel can help you or me safely deconstruct that which needs to go. He'll guide you and he'll comfort you as the souls cross over. So it's not that if you get the angel of death that someone's going to die. This angel's coming forth to say, hey, you have a really big change coming, and I know you're going to feel afraid. And this angel will help you. So don't fear Azrael. I've worked with him extensively in my own very personal transformations, and he has brought me a lot of peace.
Oh yeah, like this is not like, I don't want you guys to like be freaked out or be like, oh gosh, like that really happened to her. Like it happened to me because I chose this life path. It's just like that was the story I had to really relate. The only angelic work I've really had intercede, I guess, in my life. And I've since then, like I've received, other messages. I knew coming back from Pennsylvania that my grandmother wasn't going to make it. And it's just a lot of different like dreams. It only happens to me with family, it seems. Like if a client asks, I have had people ask, and if I get a feeling, honestly, typically I don't answer, because I know that's going to affect my client. If I'm like, doesn't feel like it, I don't say it. I'll be the first person to say, like, if your grandmother's on hospice, I'm not going to tell you she's going to be gone in a week. If that's the message I receive, I just am saying you should be by your grandmother's side.
Yes.
Don't leave. And I mean, that's just kind of like how I relate it. And whenever I was going like on my spiritual journey, that actually with my mom, that happened to me whenever I was like 12. So it was a lot to process. And that was my first huge like spiritual awakening. I try and say that I had two, because that was super intense. And I was joking with Nancy that I've never had anything that wasn't not intense. I was like, I don't know how everybody gets unicorns and rainbows, and me and Nancy got like Haunting of Hill House. Things moving, like we share stories where I was like, I saw a plant move in my house, I saw doors open. Like, how does everybody get like all of these like beautiful visions of ascended masters? Like, I didn't get any of that. Like, I was scared. And then it happened again whenever I kind of really learned to cut a lot of toxic people out of my life, and got rid of, like, I had some spiritual attachment issues I had to get rid of, and I got rid of that. And Nancy and Emila, I credit them a lot because they both greatly helped me in a lot of my healing. But that, again, because I had just me here, and then I did a lot of soul retrieval and brought all of those soul pieces back that splintered, because I splintered off into so many pieces. I didn't know what I felt like or what I could do anymore. And so then I had another spiritual awakening.
Wow.
And it was super intense, but I was curious about your spiritual awakening, because I know you said you were like a counselor from like the time you were really little, and like how that was for you. Because for me, I feel like everything's like on steroids. And I'm always curious to feel and, hear how other people's spiritual awakenings happened for them.
So the first spiritual awakening I had, it feels a little bit sad. I was 14 years old, and my mom this was her third husband, and he just really didn't like her two children, me and my brother, and they were going to move out of state. And I heard, this is the first time where you have one of those movie scenes. The clouds part and a big voice comes down and says, "Do not go." Right? I mean, like just like that, right? And I'm 14.
Oh, that's
And I'm like, where do I go? My dad is at that point a truck driver, long haul truck driver. He's never home. He is on the road all the time. So I listened to it, and I literally had to pack my things in paper bags and walk out that front door and move in with my grandparents. And
wow.
now my grandparents didn't want me. They did not want me there. They could not wrap their brain. So later in a recent mediumship reading, just within, I think, the last year, my grandmother came through, a well-known medium, and explained to me why her behavior happened all those years ago. So the fact that this really was my first spiritual experience, well, my grandmother had some big issues with me being there. And my dad came over and they got in this argument. I had to leave that home and move in with my dad's friends that lived around the corner. Now, these were complete strangers. I had never met them, but they had gone to school with my dad. And so I walk over with my paper bags and I move into their home, and they were a lovely, lovely family. The guy was a mechanic and he worked on trucks, and he had a younger wife who was just an angel out of nowhere. She was so kind. They had two little babies, and those babies brought me so much joy. I mean, I ended up not talking to my mom. She left, and her side of the story is that she had so much anxiety and she was so heartbroken that she could not talk to me. So I didn't talk to my mother for quite a few years, all the way up, I believe, until I graduated high school. And I had to reach out to her via a letter. Remember, that was like, there were no cell phones. So it was a very traumatic journey. My whole life, childhood, has been full of a lot of trauma, even way before then. But that was the first spiritual experience. And I pretty much was on my own. And there was always what I call the cloud, or the space in between.
Mhm.
And it was this thing that guided me. It always was. I always heard and felt, but they were soft, squishy things. And I was obsessed because I felt lonely all the time. My mom loved me a lot, but she just had her own life to try to create. And, she made mistakes, but she had her own traumas. But that for me, that was how I became independent, and spirit was there for me. I relied on those quiet times, laying in bed, staring into my doll's eyes. I would stare at my dolls and I would just look at them, and like, you think your stuffed animals are alive. I would just feel spirit over and over again, like every single night of my life. I didn't realize and make that part of my huge story until I started going on interviews, because I just thought it was normal. I just thought everybody did that. Like, didn't everybody play the Ouija board like all the time? And doesn't everybody just, feel the space in between? But I later found out that no, they don't.
Yeah, I mean, I did. I'll be the first one to say I did.
Yes,
And
yes.
I'm one of those mediums that I'm like, let's hold some seances, but we're also gonna kick them all out afterwards. We talk to the dead people safely in my house. No, not all the time. Honestly, unless I'm doing a seance, I don't even interact with them. I see them all
So
the time. They're walking around all my house. They're everywhere.
really,
Yeah.
okay. I love it. I love it. So you really have that ability, the just full mediumship ability. Now you don't work with them then, no?
Um, Sometimes, I mean, Nancy's trying to like help me a little bit more. I have a lot of like children, a lot of like some past life children that have like come to me. I think the first time it happened was in meditation, and I'm just trying to practice meditation, and I'm just here. The whole house is like super quiet. I'm like, yes, I can totally do this. I'm gonna be spiritual. I was like super excited, and during my meditation, I hear this little kid, and the only thing they said is "Mama," and I was like, nope, gotta go. Up. I ran out of my living room onto my porch. I was like, I need some air. I was in this 900-foot square apartment at the time, and I was like, oh my God. And then right after that, they just started coming in dreams. And it's funny because I never actually see them whenever I'm dreaming, but I can hear them. They each have a different voice. I've had a grown man come up to me, and I could tell he was a grown man because had this deep voice. And he just said, "Hey, Mama, I miss you so much." And I was like, wake up.
Whoa.
And I would freak out. I would freak out so hardcore. And this was happening to me a lot, like last year. And then right before I moved, I had this real life living girl, little girl at Chick-fil-A. She was about my daughter's age. She was 4 then. And she came up to me and she gave me a hug and she said, "I love you, Mama. I'll see you later." And I was like, okay, love you. Meanwhile, her mom is sitting right across from me. It was super awkward. I just kind of was like, bye. But whenever you
Wow.
have kids, like so close from death, in a sense, like sounds really morbid, but they're
I
so
know.
close from death, like they still have a lot of those memories. And sometimes it just spews out of them. And they don't really know why.
I love that. So my daughter, my 18-year-old right now, is exactly like that. She has always heard voices outside. So there's two ways you can hear that, inside or outside. She always hears the voices, clairaudience outside, and she has lots of children that come to her. And so she's clairaudient. And luckily, with my studies of work, never labeling her crazy, she's gifted very strongly in that, where my voice is more in my head. Now, my first mediumship experience, I've been called, Nancy called me the angel whisperer. I've been called an angelic medium. I have begged the angels to please help me explain what I do, because basically I'll read and send messages from anywhere to help others heal, find happiness, and build their courage. So my whole my whole passion for this is changing the world and helping us empower through our intuition. That's so, our basic intuition, but healing our sadness and finding happiness. Happiness is not expensive, but there's so much magic in our world today. But when I discovered mediumship, it was a few years ago. I was doing angel readings, and it was this woman from Boston, and she had come. She was a friend, a friend's mom. I'm reading her, and she says, "Well, I want to know my guardian angels' names." And I said, "Well, I hear Betty." And she says, "Betty, that's my deceased great aunt." And I said, "Oh, hi, Betty. Well, Betty says this." And I started feeling Betty, and I got a message. And then again, it happened in another reading. "What's my guardian angel's name?" And then I get, "Well, I'm hearing Fred." "Fred, that's my uncle that just passed away." And so what is the first thing we do? I get scared. I'm like, wait a minute. Am I supposed to be a medium? Like, mediumship's coming through, and then I ask spirit if I'm supposed to be a medium. So you know what happens? The phone rings the next day for, now these people want mediumship readings. It's like my secret service. And and then I went back to Hay House, right? And I'm like, okay, I know that there's a guy there who did angelic mediumship. I went through this whole class and listened to him, and really it wasn't any different teaching, because we used the angels to I already use angels to do readings, right? So it was just a small formula of what angel to use for an angelic mediumship reading, but it made me feel safe. That was the thing, is it made me feel safe. So then for a while I would play with spirit and say, am I really a medium? And then I had this mom come to me who was a referral. So she comes and I read her son who passed away in an automobile accident.
Mm.
And her son ends up hanging out with me for like 3 days. He's just this big loving teddy bear. His sign is messing with our TV usually, or he'll mess with the phone. So I read for him, I've got goosebumps. I read for him a couple of years ago, but I was gifted this feeling of friendship. It wasn't scary, it wasn't invasive. So I communicated this with her. She has since sent me her entire family. Then I hadn't read for her in a long time, like probably a good year. She wants to do a reading. So my daughter, the clairaudient, says, Mom, something came through my closet door this morning, and my other daughter upstairs heard my daughter's closet door open, so you can hear very easy because it's on a track and it's a mirror.
Mm-hmm.
And she actually texted my daughter and said, why are you awake this early, or something. So there was that confirmation, and I just looked over, like I immediately had the feeling. I go, oh, that's Andrew. I'm reading for his mom in a couple of hours. And my daughter's like, why would he come through my closet door? And I said, I don't know. He's probably looking for the guitar. He loves music, and it's just the way he came through. But when you're comfortable in this work, you don't have to find so much evidence. These are the things that even my own children are telling me, and that I know once you open up your abilities, that I don't have to question it or try to prove it anymore. And at the conference at Soul Summit, there were a lot of teachers, and they kept trying to teach the audience to believe this evidence. They kept calling it an evidential medium. And I thought,
agree with that term.
thank
I
you.
interrupt you, but I don't personally agree with that term.
Okay. Can I just thank you? Can I just thank you? And there were some wonderful mediums there, no disrespect, but the evidence of proof I felt interfered with some of the messages. However, they know their crowd that was there. They know what the people needed. As where I came in as an experienced practitioner, I believe they were probably talking to a different, group that was there. I say that the evidence comes when your client cries, or they feel a wash of happiness, or they know the confirmation in their heart. We teach, as psychics and mediums or spiritualists, your soul knows when you're receiving a real message by those emotions, happiness, maybe some brief sadness and tears. Your soul's not going to lie to you. So I just kind of made a note to make sure that I've done all the work, and just, these are your signs, and you can trust them. If you feel a loved one is near you, they #are period. That's a full sentence. They are near you. It's a full experience. Oh, I feel like my grandfather's near me. They are. Stop right there. Don't talk yourself out of it, because the spiritual world is where I find my trust, happiness, and magic.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And I mean, there's a reason why I don't agree with evidential mediumship, because if you're looking for evidence that something is there, first of all, that's kind of dangerous, because you're inviting something else there that's like, oh, you want to know that something's there? I'm going to fuck with you now, and I'm really going to be here. And then you start getting into like this, it's like I kind of call it like a dark zone, where you can't really control what's happening to you. And as a medium, like I try and control my space. I know there's a lot of angels, there's guides, and there's a lot of dead people here. But guess what? I live here. This is my space. I pay rent, not you. And you don't interfere with me. And I feel like if you're looking for all this evidence, you're going to get it. And it's not going to be like, positive. I mean, that's just my soapbox response. Not trying to like down anybody that's an evidential medium, but I mean, it's just my personal opinion that if you're looking for evidence, are you trusting what you're perceiving?
Absolutely. I mean, that's well said. And,
Sounds
you know,
like I'm throwing shade on everybody that says they're evidential medium, but I'm just saying, sorry, not sorry.
yes. And, you know, I didn't feel any darkness, or it was all high vibe and light. But I guess if you are practicing alone and you're, you know, new and you're looking for evidence, I never thought that you could possibly open up those darker or more intense experiences that could really shift your experience by asking for evidence, you know. Um, but it was very high vibrational, but I felt like in looking for that evidence, it was like, yes, it was almost like it was harder to believe what you were experiencing. So it just made me question, am I evidential enough? But I know from my clients' reactions and the referrals that however it's coming through my angelic readings, that it's my path, right? And every practitioner has a little different vibe. It all comes down to following that vibe, whatever it is. It's just I had trouble really feeling the messages because it was so much evidence. But um, I know there's a need for that. And again, you know, I don't get the kind of readings that most mediums get. I get more personalities, more memories. Sometimes I'll be shown an item, but I get more memories and personality types, like a laughter, or somebody who cusses a lot, or somebody who's really sassy. Those are the things that I get, and people know right away whether or not that's true. And so how it develops from here on out, I would like to just let it develop. And I've already agreed to be that conduit or that messenger. But I still won't. I usually don't call myself an angelic medium. You know, I still ask the angels every day, "Would you please describe?" And I think it practitioner describes me because I, aside from mediumship, when I read someone, I see the chakra system and the auric field. And I do a lot of what we would call psychic surgery, meaning balancing your chakras, removing attachments. That's always done with Archangel Michael. And then filling the aura back up, you know. But I think people would term that as more like an aura surgery. And I think Wayne Dyer was famous for having a psychic surgery performed on him. And I don't know all the details to that, but that I feel like that is sort of what I do too. And now, how do you say that? Oh, I'm also a psychic surgeon. Like,
Yeah, there's so many labels and names for it. And I have like different ways in which like Nancy and Emil and I, we each have a different way in which we do things. And like I can channel a different language, and I incorporate that into my Reiki. And so as I'm doing group Reiki inside the Crow Conjuring, people see me with my Reiki fan, and I'm speaking different languages that aren't anything that's being used anymore. And she's doing hand symbols because Nancy does a more shamanic practice, and they have all these hand movements that they do. I can't do that, but I know what I have, and I was born with the ability to speak whatever language this is. I don't know. I just throw it up and it works. It has an impact because I've seen it. I think just the other day my husband was irritated with me. I can't even remember why, but I just touched his face, and I was just thinking in the language and in English at the same time. And I was like, I just wish he would calm down. And as soon as I touched him, he just like stopped and he left. And it's great. But that just goes to show you, like, we each have a different way in which we do our practice. I've never had a problem with getting close to somebody because I don't have a problem with other energies getting close to me. Like, I definitely have developed boundaries. Like, I've tried really hard. But my crown chakra is always very open. I think I got a records reading, and the practitioner told me that I had two different God sources. I haven't done a lot of records research, so I don't know the exact terminology and how that works. But it just basically means like I'm always very, very open and very expansive. And of course, what you were saying is completely correct. Like whenever you see people's reactions, whenever you're giving a reading, you know it's true. And I think the closest one I've ever had was as far as like clear audience with your mediumship and what you were saying was I was doing an Instagram reading for the Crow Conjuring, and I was like, this girl popped in and she was like, tell me what I need to know. And this very male voice came in and he said, I loved her first. And I was like, I didn't know what it meant. And so I messaged her back and I said, you know, you got some guides, you got some angels. This is what they're saying you need to do. And then at the end of it, I messaged her privately and I said, I don't know why you need to know this, but somebody else loved you first. And it was a young male, and I described what he looked like because he showed me. Because after he said that, I asked him, I said, can you come closer to me? And I saw him in my mind, and he let me see him, and I told her, I said, this is what he looks like to me. He might have looked different in life, but this is how I perceive him. And she messaged me back and she said, oh my God, this is my friend. We were best friends, but he always said I was the marrying type and not the dating type. And I said, well, he very much made it seem like he romantically loved you first. And she said, well, he did. And we would say, I love you all the time. But for whatever reason, it didn't work out for them. And he unfortunately ended up passing away. And she said, that passing stayed with me forever. And it really altered her as a person. I mean, you can tell, like, I've read for her before and I knew there was some sadness, but he didn't step through until then, because I was just I was very open. I was very trusting. And if I was looking for some type of evidence, I feel like I would have focused more on her guides and angel messages, because that's what I was more familiar with, instead of this, like, I don't know who the hell he is. I loved her first. All right, creepy. Like,
yes.
You have to be extremely trusting with what you're going to deliver. And at the end of the day, like I always tell my clients, if you don't feel the message is for you right now, it's probably not for you right now, but it's going to make sense eventually.
Eventually. Yes, absolutely. Yes. And, working with the angelic realm has allowed me to really, I think, lift a lot of the emotional pain that we deal with in everyday life. So, one of my callings is to, I believe, help people build themselves up so that they can make the decisions that they already know they need to make. Many of us, I'm going to just give it to you straight, when they're coming in for a reading, a lot of times the question is, should I leave my marriage? Is this person good for me? Is my relationship over? But they're coming in saying, hey, and it could be life purpose too, but a lot of mine are really, the underlying issue is they're feeling disconnected, and they need to make a life change. It's not always relationship. Let me retract a little bit. It is sometimes career, or it's sometimes an emptiness in the heart of knowing they have a passion. Maybe they want to be a spiritual healer. Most of you are spiritual listening to these podcasts. And if you want to be and you feel emptiness or sadness, start pursuing it right now and just start walking, and you will be shown. And the reason you want to seek a spiritual path is probably for your own healing first. But if you want to change the world and you want to make it a business, you absolutely can. It's possible. But I do find that, we're all suffering. Everybody has had trauma. Everyone's had a broken heart at one time in their life. Everyone feels lost. And I like the way that I practice, because I want the people, when they're broken, I want to build them up. I want them to receive messages, to feel a peaceful heart for a little bit. Then you can begin to walk. But if you feel you can't take action right now, there's a reason. It's like I hear the angels saying, darling, it's because you've carried all of this sadness and pain for so long that you haven't had the opportunity. You can't move because you're literally bound. by your fears and your discomfort and your not knowing and your confusion. And so when we work with the angelic realm, they have a way of lifting that a bit and helping you kind of set you free, and you do get the forward moving energy. Also, never doubt the miracles that come when I work with the angelic realm or you invoke your angels. It can happen in one day. There's not a time limit. When I say build yourself up, if you're at a time in your life that things are really, really very unsure and you get a message and you act on it, that's because it was your divine timing. So the timeline is, usually the angels want you to unload your baggage, start to heal, find your clarity so that you can prepare to either create a new path, a new career, a new love life, whatever it is. But we cannot do that alone, cannot do that in isolation. And the angels, they love you. You feel the love, the peace, and the courage. And the courage comes after that. So the angels are not going to come in and give you a reading and say, go home, file for divorce, leave your job, be homeless. Like, that's not going to happen, but it may be on your heart that you feel that is coming. And if that is so, start building yourself up right now.
That's awesome. I love that. I love that. I think one of the best questions I love asking everybody I do these little podcast chats with is, what is the best lesson you have learned while being in this kind of spiritual, high vibe? I don't even know how to describe it. To me, it's just something like, I feel like it's a very natural way of being, is being spiritual. Like, I'm a better person, and I feel like I'm better towards myself whenever I'm being spiritual. And I think for me, that's one of the best lessons I've learned, is to like accept any healing that I might need, and that like everything that I have going on in my life is a choice, because all of the people that annoy me, all of this is, I asked for this to come to me in one way or another. Even though I don't like it and it makes me super uncomfortable. I asked for it. I chose it, because these are really annoying lessons.
Yes.
That I have.
And so the question is like, what's your biggest lesson you've learned being spiritual?
Biggest lesson being spiritual.
The biggest one I have learned is the miracles come like a slot machine right after you do the scariest thing you need to do. Whether that's sign up for a tarot class, whether that's make a life change, but the fear mounts and gets so intense and so scary. But as soon as you take that step, it goes down. The healing comes after you walk through the fire. And then the miracles come, because you cannot open up, I call them doors of miracles, without finding the courage to walk through that fear. And I'm talking daily fear, I'm talking big life fear, but the angels know that the fear that you feel is real to you. But how you get transmuted is by walking through it. And when you work with the angelic realm, they bring better miracles, faster healing, and a feeling of peace.
I love that. I love that. And I hope, our podcast listeners, as you guys go forth and you listen to this podcast, not only do you reach out to Shelly, but everybody takes a little slice of it, because like I said, I chose a different path besides working with the angelic realm. And it's not that I can't perceive the angelic realm. It's to tell you that everybody is a medium. We all choose what our most comfortable mediumship is. And sometimes you don't have control over it. Sometimes you get every single bit of it that there is, because that's what you chose before you came down to this earthly plane. You were like, I want all of it. And maybe Shelly just chose, well, I just want to stay here with my angels, with my crew. And that's totally fine. But I mean, I hopefully, for anything from our Crow Conjuring people to Shelly's clients, like, I hope you all learn from these chats, and especially this talk with Shelly, that we are all mediums. We all have our own way of being connected to everything around us, and we in our own lives are all connected to each other. It's an active choice. It's a bigger, higher thing, higher levels than probably I or Shelly can even perceive, that we are having this conversation right now. And it happens every time I have a chat with somebody about this, or whenever I'm just with a client. And I'm sure Shelly probably feels it as well.
Absolutely. Want to raise the vibration, and your path to healing is always a little bit different, but you do have a spiritual path. And I have studied everything from crystal healing to candle flame reading to, just keep walking the path that you're guided on and build yourself up and find your group, find some support. From an experienced practitioner. If you don't like the vibe of a practitioner, please don't go to that person, whoever it may be. You have your teachers who resonate with your soul. If you don't like my vibe, don't come to me for a reading. You won't get a good message. And if something scares you, if you feel this fear when you get readings, like street readers or people at fairs, I just urge you to stay away from that. There's plenty of beautiful communities like this that have, a nicer vibe or a more experienced vibe of helping and healing. But no way is the right way. Your way is your path for right now. And there's always a miracle waiting for you. All you have to do is ask your angelic team. That's all you have to do. And it will be shown. And you will be guided, and you're never alone, ever, you're never alone. So that's what I've learned. I'd love to do a session with you. I would love to experience how you read and how you see mediumship around me, because I'm sure I brought home a lot of people from Arizona.
I mean, it's all a little different, but I definitely agree with what you just said, because I know whenever I was going through my second spiritual awakening, like, it was really hard to find validation, because I was having all of these experiences again, because it's all happening at once, and I was kind of like just vomiting information to people. And it's a little invasive, I'm not gonna lie. It is, whenever you're just like, I really have to tell you this, please just take this. And a lot of people were like, I don't believe you. I had a very experienced practitioners who were like, I don't really believe you. I don't believe that this is happening. And I was like, well, it is, and it's freaking me out. So I just thought I'd let you know. There you go. there's your information. But I think the way I do it is, if I'm not reading for people, I tend to have a lot more experiences around me. I hate using this word because it's so like media in the media, but I have a lot more like haunting experiences where I see the dead people a lot more in my house. They're mostly hanging out. We coexist peacefully. And I think I'm probably, besides Nancy and Yamila, we are some of the few mediums that are like, we have dead people in our house. They're like everywhere. And sometimes it's really scary, I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes I take a step back and I'm like, did I really just see that? Because I'll see them as real as I'm seeing you right now. As real as I'm seeing you. And sometimes it is, I'm not gonna lie, it's a little scary. I went to
Yeah, I did have an experience where I saw a lower energy attachment, and you have to be careful what words you use when you say that, because some people call them demons and whatnot. And as clear as I'm seeing you now, within the last year, I witnessed black smoke coming out of someone's mouth, all around the teeth, out the side of the mouth, a thin black smoke, and it curled in a curly Q on both sides of the mouth like a mustache. Then the eyes turned to like an eyeliner, like a smoky eyeliner, and the smoke came from the out corner of the eye and went up. Now, most of you know, if you follow me, like, I'm a geek. I don't drink coffee. I don't do drugs. This was plain. This was as if we're talking here. that was the scariest spiritual experience I have ever had. And so the first thing I did was call my old mentor, my friend. We've been friends over 20 years, someone I could trust who knows spirit. I've never seen anything like that. So she said, that's an attachment, and there's several things you can do. When I saw that happening, I froze. I felt like I was in cement, and I kept saying, Archangel Michael, help me now. Archangel Michael, help me now. I just kept chanting because I was super scared and stunned, like a deer in the headlights. Then I went down to my local spiritual store because they're a different vibe, right? They're like a different vibe at the spiritual store, right? And and I've been going there for years. So I come in and I tell them this because I'm like, they will believe me, right? No one's going to believe me that I saw this.
Mm-hmm.
So they were very serious about what I had seen. And I did need, okay, if we said we didn't like evidence before, I'm taking that all back. I needed a confirmation. I needed someone to help me and believe me. And they were so sweet. They helped me. They helped me understand it, and it changed my life. So, intense things can and do happen to everyday people, even when you work in the angelic realm. Having that experience myself made me a whole different believer.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It can be really hard. And I know, like, whenever I had my spiritual attachment, I was experiencing a lot of feelings of panic. And I just felt like I got to a certain point where I said, if I don't get rid of this now, it's going to take over my body. And at first, like, I went into that being like, that doesn't happen. Like, everyone is lying. Like, this is a bunch of BS. Like, you're a little too woo woo for me. Like, back up. Like, that was my initial response to it. And then things kept happening into my life where I kept getting these people that, like, this person was like, I knew your spiritual attachment from a past life, and we don't like them, and we don't like you. And it was very, like, they weren't happy experiences, but it just kept pushing me to come to more of an acceptance to what was really going on. And, like, they weren't, great interactions, but eventually I sat down and I was like, all right, we're just going to say this is real. I have a spiritual attachment. Okay, I'm going to do it. Like, I was like, whatever. They're smoking something over there that clearly I'm not. And
Right. I didn't have the attachment. I didn't have the
no,
attachment,
it was
but
Shelly that was witnessing. I'm the
yes.
person. It wasn't me.
Oh,
It was like, how do I explain it so our listeners understand? Shelly didn't witness me, but I'm explaining my spiritual attachment experience because I had one as a healer myself.
wow. That's a crazy experience.
And I went into the mirror and I was like, look, if there's somebody else in my body besides me, I want to see it. Like, seeing is believing. And I went in there and I was like, I don't see anything. Whatever. So I go into the bathroom, I sit down, and I look at my body and I was like, I see another arm floating above my arm.
Wow.
And I was like, I don't want to see anymore. Never mind. I take it back. And then after I did that, I couldn't take it back. And
Oh, wow.
where I say, like, people need to be a little careful whenever they start, like, going in and just calling on whatever, because I was like, I want to see it if it's real. Like, show it to me, because now I want to know. And I saw that, and whenever I was explaining this to other practitioners, they were like, it was perceived with a lot of doubt. And I was like, I know what I'm seeing. I'm not crazy. And then I would go back in and I would look at pictures and I would see my face change. And then I would look in the mirror, and one day I looked and I was like, oh my God, I'm getting older. It was because my spiritual attachment was an old lady.
Wow. This stuff is out there, and this these are experiences.
It really is. It is real, and everybody's experience is totally different. And I mean, I'm very passionate about spiritual attachment work because if I didn't say yes to get rid of it and have Nancy and Yamila help me, like I didn't realize how heavy that was inside my body until it was gone. And I will never forget the day I woke up from sleeping on the couch and I was like, oh my God, I feel so good. I feel so light. Like, what happened to me? And I remember I called Nancy on the phone
Gosh.
and I was so thankful. And I was like, oh my God, this feels so good. I feel so light. And she was like, no, no, no. She stopped me because technically I was very empty at that point. I needed
Right.
all of those pieces of my soul to come back. And she was like, that's what it feels like without her. But now we need to reintegrate all of your soul pieces that splintered off. So there was more work. There was a lot more work to be done. And I still do soul retrievals. It's not like I don't do them and I'm like, oh, one and done and we're fine.
Right. Now, do you do those on a regular basis? Just call. I've done that where I've called fragments of myself back to me when I feel discombobulated. But I haven't done that in quite some time.
Um,
Is that, or I'm just calling fragments back for when I feel off, but I haven't. I guess I'm not sure if that's a full soul retrieval.
I do them based on like a very shamanic practice that Nancy
Okay.
taught me. And I think that was what I found to be most effective. And it's important for me to say to all the listeners that I did it after, she sat me down and she really told me what to do, but I took my own power back and I did it. Now I guess maybe I was a special case, but there were so many fragments that I had to reclaim. At one point I was like, this is taking too long. Nancy, can you help me? And that was like a bad thing because she did a soul retrieval on me. You can have soul retrieval work done to you or you can do
Yes.
it yourself. I always tell people to take their own power back and do it themselves.
Yes.
Um, but she did it for me, and I think about 60 pieces. It felt like there were a strong number of 60 pieces came back at one time, and I felt like I took drugs because
Wow.
all these different visions of these different lifetimes, and it was all me. It was all me. But it was
Wow.
all these different versions of myself. But that's how empty I was with
Yes.
my spiritual attachment, and that's how like I was the stronger soul, obviously, because I'm here and my body didn't get taken over like some body snatcher or whatever that was being described to me. Like I'm fine, but it was a lot of work to do. And now like I did a lot more soul retrievals after that. I try to do them once a month, and whenever I feel like you said, whenever I'm feeling like something is in the way,
Hmm.
I feel like I really need to do one. I don't really like doing them, to be honest. It's because I'm
Hmm.
emotional about it. I'm always
Hmm.
emotional about it. I will cry. I've cried in a group meditation after doing a group soul retrieval, and I'll be like,
Well,
oh
that's wonderful. That's your confirmation and your healing. And I have learned to allow crying as part of my practice as well. Um, to just be there when I'm not a super emotional person. But I had been going through a grieving process, and that's probably another podcast. But um, in the letting those emotions be there, I found it healing. And it, as long as I didn't like stay in it all day, but I'm more willing. What I learned through my grief was that it was okay to have these bouts of crying. And the book I do want to write now is Healing from Heartbreak, and it was a spiritual journey. And it'll probably be a small book, but yeah, it's a recent event within the last year and a half, and my bio on my website sort of explains it. But none of us are exempt from pain out of nowhere, and spiritual practitioners usually come from a long line of pain, right? And they find ways to heal it. So um, it's just an honor to be able to come with other practitioners. And I have respect for people that practice spirituality in whatever way that you do. But I feel like we should tell listeners just like really quick how to protect themselves. Like a couple of things, because we're talking about how you can bring darkness in, and we're assuming people are like maybe experienced, but I'll just run through a couple quick things and you can share yours. Okay. So the safety stuff. All right. How do you stay safe? Oh my gosh, well, I don't want this. Well, first of all, learn from an experienced teacher, have a couple conversations, take classes that you trust. Okay. That's like basic. What do I do? Age-old practices, sage. Use sage first, but beyond sage or Palo Santo, lighting a white candle is my number one helpful thing, because it brings in the light, it connects me, it bridges my gap with the other realm too, and it holds that space. But I always call on Archangel Michael. You know, Michael is the one who does spirit releasement. He has been pictured stomping on demons. You know, I call on Michael. Wherever you want to call on your higher team, so who you worship. I've heard of people saying Michael, Jesus, angelic realm. Well, actually, I call on everybody. I'm like, and whoever else is available who is of the highest love and light.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it's usually Michael, and then I connect beyond Michael with the Christ consciousness, which is a lot of what our world today seems to believe, but there is a pure light out there. Also the seraphim realm, but Michael is your guy. That's, hey, Michael, protect this space. And then I always ground with the earth, up through the sky, past the sun, and I anchor. So I want a clear channel, like a lightning rod running through me that keeps me tethered to the earth, but pulling in the angelic light. And then from there you can branch off. But those are simple things. And when you're done, you've got to close out your circle. You've got to close down your portals and your chakras. You've got to close it. And I do that by washing my hands in the sink, and I say, okay, we're done with this practice. I might spray sage real quick, just 2 sprays if I feel it. But I really come into gratitude. Thank you. I kind of visualize closing all of my chakras and my circle. I call it a circle, into my heart. I show gratitude, and then I'm done. I don't think about it. I don't play with it. It is so.
Yeah. That's a lot of what I do. As a practitioner, whenever I'm giving Reiki, especially, I'm always outside. I'm never inside.
Oh, okay.
Sometimes if I feel like I have a very difficult client, like if I do a reading, well, first of all, if I have a client and I'm immediately, the first couple of messages that I'm getting, I'm like, I'm immediately trying to tap into them. And if I feel like they're going to be a lot, I'm outside doing their reading. Like I'm outside on my porch. I close everything off. I'm like, don't talk to me. And I'm outside doing that. I always have smoky quartz near me whenever I'm doing Reiki services or tarot services. That's for me. And if I do Reiki, they're making me talk a lot about Reiki, I guess, like for healing. If I do Reiki, I am merged with my main spirit guide that I do a lot of my work with. I do a lot of merging. I have a dragon spirit guide that I do that with. And then I take a shower. I wash my whole body from my head to my toes, because my crown chakra is always very, very, very open. So as I'm in the shower, I'm trying to like visualize. And if I really, really need it, I rub my whole body down with selenite. I have one selenite. I don't use it for any other clients. It's my selenite for me. And I literally take it to palm stone, and I'm like, get everything off of me.
I love that. I use selenite too. Sometimes I hold it on my lap while I'm reading. I just have it sitting. I always have crystals nearby too. But you don't have to have crystals. You can even think of a crystal and get the energy, right? Like you can call even on a crystal protection. I've had people say, well, I can't afford crystals, or, I don't want to go out and spend a lot of money. I mean, they don't have to be, AA quality either. So you can pick anything from your yard, even like a special rock that's from the earth and feels cleansed and grounding, I've had people say they do that. Why do you think kids always bring home rocks, right? Because there's energy in them.
Yes. Woo! I loved this podcast episode. I think people are really, really going to enjoy it. I hope you enjoyed it.
Of course I enjoyed it. Any opportunity to talk spiritual talk with other practitioners gives me goosebumps and makes my heart super happy.
Yes. Awesome. Well, if you want to tell people one more time how to get in touch with you, if they want to work with you, and your website and Instagram will be in our show notes.
Shelly Marie 888 on Instagram and shellymarie.net. That is a newer website, and I'm so happy I finally got it out there.
I'm super excited for you. Thank you so much for talking to us here at the Create Your Own Damn Magic podcast, and I'll let you know whenever, as soon as this is up.
I can't wait, and thank you for choosing me as to be on. I loved it.